Good evening. It's an honor and a privilege to present this tribute to Turan M. Itil at the occasion of his first memorial grant at the 20th Biennial IPEG meeting in Zurich. I am speaking to you from Hawaii. I am Michael Russo, President of the Hawaii Neurological Society, founder of the Honolulu Neuroscience Clinic, and a grateful student of Dr. Itil's. This is a tribute to a great man, a great physician, a great scientist, a great husband, a great father, and a great teacher. Turan was born in Bursa, Turkey, on August 12, 1924. For those of you who are geographically challenged, Bursa is just south across the Marmara Sea from Istanbul. He went to the University of Istanbul School of Medicine, where he graduated in 1948. From Istanbul, he traveled to the University of Tübingen in Germany, where he did his residency in neurology and psychiatry from 1948 to 1953. From Tübingen, he traveled to Erlangen, where at Erlangen University he founded their EEG and Psychopharmacology Research Center in 1953. He was in University of Erlangen through 1960. It was in Erlangen that he met his wife Ellen, and they married in 1955. He celebrated the wedding by cutting a ribbon of EEG paper. In Erlangen in 1958, his son Kurt was born. From Erlangen, he traveled to Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. For those of you who are geographically challenged, Missouri is right in the center of the United States. He was there from 1960 to 1970. In Missouri, his daughter Yasmin was born in 1961. In 1964, Turan established the EEG laboratory at the newly opened Missouri Institute for Psychiatry, and he began using digital techniques, computer methods, to analyze EEG changes. Turan and Max Fink developed reliable quantitative methods to predict the clinical applications of potential psychotropic drugs and to separate the clinically active from inactive enantiomers and to suggest dosage ranges. In 1970, Turan moved to New York Medical College, where he was faculty, professor of neurology, and psychiatry. It was in New York that I met Professor Itil. In 1972, he was asked to profile a new medication, Myoncering, GB94, potentially an antidepressant. He found that the EEG patterns in human volunteers and in patients were identical to those of imipramine. And his report conflicted with the Organon scientists, the pharmacologists using animal models. Based on Turan's predictions, they ran clinical trials, and the clinical trials did show that Myoncering was a clinically useful antidepressant, and it was successfully marketed, verifying the usefulness of the pharmaco-EEG prediction models and showing the limitations of animal models in predicting clinical efficacy of potential psychotropic drugs in humans. So Turan began to look at the EEG effects of psychotropic drugs in man. By 1966, he had presentations at the CINP in Washington that showed that EEG and behavior were associated in man, and that EEG studies of potential psychoactive medicines could be used to predict whether they would be useful in humans. This critical determination established pharmaco-EEG as a human science. Turan was co-founder of the International Pharmaco-EEG Society, IPEG, in 1980 with Hermann and Still. His students Bernd Salatu of Vienna, Masami Saito in Japan, and Sevket Akpenar in Turkey each became a leader in pharmaco-EEG science. Turan was also in New York a consultant and lead scientist on projects with the World Health Organization. He was an active member of the ACNP and CINP and numerous other EEG psychopharmacology societies. This is his home in Upper Grandview, Nyack, New York, where he lived from 1970 to 2000, raised his children, Kurt and Yasmin, lived with Ellen, and where I met and spent much time with Professor Itil. During this time, he had a mantra that he repeated to me over and over again. He said, "It is inconceivable today that an internist diagnose heart disease without EKG scrutiny of cardiac function, or diagnose liver disease without testing for hepatic function. By the same token, it is imperative that psychiatrists, especially those prescribing drugs, be concerned with testing cerebral functions." Although the EEG is the only easy, non-invasive, and economic method for continuous monitoring of cerebral function, its application in psychiatry has been very limited. However, thanks to progress in psychopharmacology, the development of computer analyses, and the increased need for techniques for objective assessments in psychiatry, in recent years the use of the EEG has been rediscovered. Even without computer analysis, the EEG can provide significant information for differential diagnoses, for selection of type and dosage of psychotropic drugs, and for monitoring drug treatment. This is what he told me when I was 17 years old, and it is the reason I went into neurology. I believed in what he predicted and what he said. This is Turan at his home in Bursa, back in Turkey where he retired after New York, with his son Kurt, his daughter Yasmin, his son-in-law Arne. This is January 2014. Professor Itil passed in April 2014, but not before leaving a huge legacy of written materials that his sister published posthumously as the book called The Forgotten Brain. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present this tribute to one of the greatest men I have ever known. Thank you.